Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Catalyst Wedding Review Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jen Samako, and I'm the leader behind Catalyst Wedding Co. So each week on this podcast, we're looking at the role that pop culture plays and how we as a society think about weddings. This week, I am overjoyed to be joined by Allison Davis to talk about the Bravo reality series, I Dream of NeNe. This was a spin-off series that Bravo ran in 2013 that followed the engagement and wedding of NeNe Leakes to Greg Leakes. So NeNe kind of rose to stardom after being featured on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, which started in 2008, and I love her. So during her time on Real Housewives, NeNe and her husband Greg separated and divorced after 14 years of marriage. They went through a bit of a messy legal divorce before finally reconciling and deciding to remarry. And so the whole plot of I Dream of NeNe is that it is a 8-episode series that kind of chronicles their journey back to the altar. So before we get too far down the rabbit hole in talking about this show, I have to introduce my super special guest, Allison Davis.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to go on and on and on about NeNe Leakes with you.
Well, just so everybody knows, Allison is the founder of Davis Row, which is a creative wedding and event planning company in New York. So I have to ask you, you picked I Dream of NeNe for us to review. So what made you decide to pick this show?
I love reality TV. I feel no shame around that. I watch everything kind of running the gamut from Big Brother, which is like the show that no one watches, everyone hates, people don't understand why it's still on air, all the way to like Great British Bake Off and like those kind of like relaxing, like widely accepted reality shows. So in thinking back of all of the reality show weddings that I've either seen on television or photos of or read about on gossip blogs, I think NeNe and Greg's second wedding was my favorite, mostly because there were so many things that happened during the wedding that they showed on television that I had never seen on a reality wedding before.
Yeah, I mean, for a celebrity wedding where like no expense was spared, I still feel like this is one of the most realistic and honest depictions of a wedding and a marriage that I have seen, especially around a celebrity couple. And like, I can't even think of a movie or any other kind of fictional representation that I think does as good of a job at showing like honestly what this is like. So yeah, I am 100% here for it. I am excited.
Yes.
Yeah, so over the course of these 8 episodes, NeNe puts it all out there.
Yes.
She lets herself be vulnerable and honest and practical. And that's just not something that we usually get to see, especially from celebrities.
And also, especially from NeNe Leakes, I feel like I've watched a lot of Real Housewives of Atlanta, especially, and she spends a lot of time coming across as like this enormous presence that only has like sassy comebacks and like attitude and like one-liners. And I feel like it was really interesting to watch this show because it was a rare glimpse of what she's actually like as a person. There were so many moments where I felt like she was being realer than she usually is. And I think that made the show even better.
Yeah. And where we start off in this series, you know, you have to really pause and think about where they are coming from because I think that they separated and started their divorce process, I think just in 2011, and this is 2013. So it's only been 2 years since they separated and went through this divorce. And, you know, they have a son together, so he had to adjust to having parents in 2 separate houses. So obviously, like, there has been a lot that they have had to overcome as a couple and as a family. And to basically make that decision to come back together and remarry is not a small one. And so just that alone is really, really kind of powerful that they've been through all this together. And there is so much talk about the importance of rebuilding trust and to try to start fresh and clean in this new marriage. It's not just about having a new wedding, but it's about having a new marriage. And I love that that is the angle that this is taking.
Yeah. Like, I think a lot of the focus when they were talking about what they wanted to be different when they tried it the second time was on their communication, because for the longest time before they got divorced, Greg had this issue of just straight up lying to NeNe's face. And of course, like that doesn't work for anybody, but she was very vocal about it not working for her and that it was not going to be okay for him to do that the second time around. They went back and forth about that a lot. And I think that she had a lot of trepidation and like she really hesitated because she wasn't sure if she could trust this man. To see her kind of work through that was really unique. You hardly ever see that level of honesty.
And they're in also a really unique situation because she's the breadwinner in this relationship.
That too.
Even though Greg is throughout the entire thing very hesitant to like dredge up the past and he wants to just focus on the future, she is putting her foot down and saying like, no, we are not re-entering into marriage without addressing these issues. And so we're not going to repeat these things that we did in our old relationship. It's just not going to happen. I love that like the whole series kind of starts off in episode 1 and, you know, they're just going through the process of Greg moving back into the house.
Yes.
And they're adapting to him being back. Their son is adapting to him being back. And they also, I don't know, I feel like so often reality shows, they manipulate people. Kind of unfairly expose people. But here, I feel like they're honestly like doing us a service to let them into their lives as they go through this process. So yeah, I love, God, I love everything about this. So in episode 1, we also see them going back and talking about their first wedding, which is really great. So they were married for 14 years. I think 1996 is when they got married the first time.
It looked like 1986.
Yeah, mid-90s. They show a video, and they also were going through and, like, looking at NeNe's old wedding dress and, like, a little bit of nostalgia. And NeNe talks about, like, well, I need to know what we did in the first wedding so that I don't repeat it in the second one. And that's a little bit about the style and the presentation of the wedding, but obviously it's about not repeating the issues from their marriage.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you noticed this, but they like reference in the program from their first wedding that they had this poem, The Art of Marriage. They kind of like read 1 or 2 lines of it. I went and I looked it up and it's so good.
Really? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So
that's amazing.
Is it going to be super cheesy if I read it to you?
No, do it.
Okay, so this is a poem. It is from the 1960s by Wilford A. Peterson. And it's called The Art of Marriage. And they had this in their program for their first wedding. And it's just like really appropriate. So this is the poem. Happiness in marriage is not something that just happens. A good marriage must be created. In the art of marriage, the little things are the big things. It is never being too old to hold hands. It is remembering to say I love you at least once a day. It is never going to sleep angry. It is at no time taking the other for granted. The courtship should not end with the honeymoon. It should continue through all the years. It is having a mutual sense of values and common objectives. It is standing together facing the world. It is forming a circle of love that gathers in the whole family. It is doing things for each other, not in the attitude of duty or sacrifice, but in the spirit of joy. It is speaking words of appreciation and demonstrating gratitude in thoughtful ways. It is not looking for perfection in each other. It is cultivating flexibility, patience, understanding, and a sense of humor. It is having the capacity to forgive and forget. It is giving each other an atmosphere in which each can grow. It is finding room for the things of the spirit. It is a common search for the good and the beautiful. It is establishing a relationship in which the independence is equal, dependence is mutual, and the obligation is reciprocal. It is not only marrying the right partner, it is being the right partner. It is discovering what marriage can be.
That is so special.
Right?
I love that so much. And also I love that you looked it up. I really appreciate that you looked it up and read it just now. I love it. I feel really emotional about that. And also, like, even though it's a reality show and we don't actually know these people and it's ridiculous and it's corny and it's over the top sometimes, like, stuff like this is what makes it interesting, I think, for people like us. Because there's this idea that reality TV is for, like, vapid idiots and watching it makes you dumber. But at the same time, like, when shows
we're all just people.
They're all just people, and shows have these moments, and, like, when people reveal these kinds of things about themselves, you really get to see part of the human experience, honestly. It's just heartwarming to be able to experience somebody's story in this way. And I think that's part of the reason why I just love NeNe's wedding special so much, because I really felt real emotions watching it. It didn't just feel like I was watching people, like, choose linens and, like, argue about the bachelor party and then, like, walk down the aisle to some random guy singing. Like, it really felt like I had an emotional investment in this.
Well, and also in her time on The Real Housewives, they did play up her big personality, sometimes to the point that it got a little stereotypical of, like, okay, here's this over-the-top, powerful, loud Black woman.
Right. She's like 5'10", 11 probably. She's just, like, a large presence because the other women are, like, smaller and, like, slighter than her. They're quieter than she is. And sometimes, especially early on, they like to make it seem like she was, like, the ultimate big sassy Black woman, which was difficult to watch as a Black woman myself, I think, sometimes. And, like, sometimes the entire series, like, the entire franchise would grate on me for that reason.
Yeah.
But I think it was nice to see this more human side of her, this emotional side of her, and, like, this softer side, I guess, of NeNe Leakes, because that's not really something you see on TV either.
No, and she is being vulnerable, but she is strong. And I don't think that there are a lot of depictions, especially of women of color, where they are allowed to be both vulnerable and strong. It's either you've got to be, like, over the top, strong all the time, be that sassy Black woman stereotype, or sometimes it's like pop culture doesn't know where you should fit in. And so in this, it's emotional, she's vulnerable, but at no point is she weak. And that is amazing.
Yes.
God, there's so much stuff out. I'm already getting carried out.
I'm trying not to, like, just, like, let it all fly and just go on and on about all the stuff that I loved and let this have, like, some sort of direction and flow. But I'm really having a hard time. Like, I just want to talk about the draping.
Okay, we will get to the draping.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about family approval. Because there's a big chunk of this series that is talking about Greg's children from a previous marriage who are all now grown, and kind of reconnecting them and making sure that things are not just good between NeNe and Greg before they re-enter into a marriage, but that things on both sides of the family are good and that the air has been cleared. And I am really thankful that they showed this process. So Greg has these 5 grown children, and we definitely get that there is a bit of a strained relationship, well, between Greg and his children, but also between NeNe and his children. And there is this perception from NeNe that she fears that they think that she had something to do with Greg breaking up with their mother, even though she did not come onto the scene until well after that happened. So once again, Greg doesn't want to drudge up the past and really doesn't have any interest. He has no interest in having these conversations. NeNe's like, no, we have to talk about this. Communication is the problem and we have to fix it. So NeNe gets Greg to go to counseling, even though, according to her, he doesn't believe that Black people should go to counseling. They
Which is
should
a
go to
very real
church.
thing. It's a
Yes.
very real thing.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about that and like
Yeah.
the stereotypes of mental health issues in the Black community and like the fact that despite those stereotypes and that stigma, she pushes through it and like makes them go get counseling, makes them have a mediator.
First, I just want to say the mediator was so key because these conversations were so tense between the children, especially like one son in particular. He was like angry, he was livid, and he clearly has a serious problem with NeNe. He had a problem with NeNe in that moment. And he like didn't even want to be in the same room with her, and then it turned into a whole thing where he's like storming out and Greg's following and they're like turning the cameras off and this, that, and the other. And like the mediator, I think, was brilliant to have, but I was also kind of surprised that NeNe was even able to convince everyone else to let the mediator be in the room, because it does go back to this whole thought in the Black community that we don't get counseling, like we don't seek mental health treatment because that's just not who we are. We go to church, we pray about it, we talk to each other, but the idea of seeking professional help is something that we just don't think is for us. And even though like it could have easily been something that like the Bravo producers told her to do and that she didn't really want to do, or that.
But if the Real Housewives is any indication, Bravo had nothing to do with that.
Right, exactly.
Like, in all of the years of Real Housewives reality TV, have they ever brought in a mediator? No. They live for that shit. They love that drama.
They do. And like, I think, of course, like whenever something happens on a reality show that's like what people perceive as outside of the norm, like Black people having group therapy, people always want to go straight to the idea that, oh, the producers came up with that, or like, oh, they were forcing them to do that. That never actually happened in real life. But even if that was the case, the fact that they still went and sat and did it, I feel like was monumental. Because when I watched that, I couldn't think of a time before that where I had seen Black people in therapy on reality television.
And also, like, you get to see how well the mediation works and the fact that they get to a point of resolve.
Right.
Especially with Greg's daughter, Katrina, and like her ability to have a platform to finally say, like, Dad, I wish you were there for me more. And like the fact that they all kind of come to this place of communication is our key problem. It's not NeNe. It's not just Greg. It's communication across the board. And to see them all come to that realization, I think is really powerful. And to show that like getting that professional help is valuable and more people should do it.
It is. And also I think it was really powerful because there's also this idea that Black women are so strong that we don't need anyone's help and that we are the pillars of the Black community, which is true. But the fact that a Black woman sought help for her and her family and was the main reason why they got to this point where they were able to really air it out with one another, I think was especially powerful. Whereas normally the idea would be, oh, okay, well, Mom's just going to fix it, Grandma's just going to fix it, or like we just won't talk about it ever again. For the person who's supposed to be the be-all, end-all problem solver to say, okay, we definitely need to take this to a different place, to a different level, and bring in outside help. I think that was such a strong statement to be made on television. I don't think I've ever seen that on reality TV before. And even after, that's not really a thing that comes up. Like, I think Candy and Todd went to therapy, but other than that, I don't think so. But now it's not such a strange idea because like on Insecure, Molly goes to therapy. And it's a major plot point because again, it's this whole thing like, I don't need to go to therapy. Why would I do that? Therapy is for white people, which is so not true. But then she goes and she has this like weird pushback moment where she doesn't want to do it, but she also realizes how important it is. And like, it's a whole different thing where she's like not totally truthful to her therapist, but that's another story. Like, it's just, it's just the idea that like Black people can go to therapy and seek counseling and take care of our mental health on television in the spotlight, and it's starting to hopefully lose a little bit of that stigma. And not to say that it's because NeNe Leakes started it, but I definitely feel like one of the earliest appearances of a Black family in therapy and having like real heated conversations with a mediator was probably on this show. Usually the point of bringing therapy into television is to create drama and to embarrass people so that it becomes something that people talk about and in turn promotes the show, they get more viewers, et cetera, et cetera. So like for this to just be purely about solving a problem was difficult to watch, but it was also kind of exciting to see it.
And to see the impact that it had, not just in that one conversation, but like, so later on in the series, you know, they have a family dinner where for the first time, like NeNe's son from previous relationship and NeNe and Greg's son together all get together and have dinner with all of Greg's children. And like, it's the first time that the whole family is all together.
Yeah.
And the siblings are really able to connect, and like, Katrina says something along the lines of like, this is what I've always dreamed of. To see that be the outcome when they were just yelling at each other. Yeah, okay, it's not maybe the most like entertaining moment for them to all be together in a restaurant having a nice dinner, but like it's important to show that they've really been able to move forward and come together as a family, and the impact that that has not only in the relationship between their children, but the relationship that Greg and NeNe have is really palpable.
Yeah. There are layers.
There's so many layers. Okay, so I'm going to shift topics a little bit to one that's going to make me cry a little bit less, I hope.
Okay.
Let's talk about prenups.
Oh my God. Oh my God. The prenup.
The prenup. So, knowing that she's been in a relationship with Greg before, and knowing that it did not work out, and knowing that they went through a very messy legal divorce process where there was fighting about who was going to get what, it is super important to NeNe, especially because she is the breadwinner, that they go into this marriage with a signed prenup. And for her, it's clear that it's just as much about trust as it is about protecting herself and her assets. So she discusses it with her lawyer. He totally agrees. And then she goes to New York to talk to her friend. And friend is in quotes here because that friend is Donald. Yeah, you heard me. So yes, NeNe was on Celebrity Apprentice. So she goes to Tower to consult with him on like, is getting a prenup the right thing, how to go about it, how to have the conversation with Greg, you know, because he's been divorced a lot.
Yeah.
And so I really hate having to see his face.
Me too.
Watching the show, but I do appreciate how pragmatic she is being about this, and that like she is being serious about it, and it's not just talking to her friends, many of whom are like, no, don't do that, or like, why would you do that?
You don't hurt his feelings, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's not about feelings. She's talking with other people, even if they might be dumpster fire people, about a prenup. So this is why it was also very important to point out that this show was filmed in 2013, before everyone knew so publicly what a garbage. I mean, we already knew he was a garbage human, but
we knew, but we didn't really know.
Yeah, now we really know.
Yeah.
So yeah, once again, I feel like prenups, it's a difficult thing for anybody to talk about. And so often if we hear about prenups, it's in the context of rich men who are trying to protect themselves from gold diggers, protecting men's money from women. And so once again, I love it. I love that we're in this situation where here's a woman, she has the majority of the assets, and if we break up, I'm willing to share with you. I just want it to be an easy process. And it's about you agreeing to these terms now, because if we break up, I do not want to go through this messy divorce again. that's so responsible and it's so mature to take
Mm-hmm.
that approach. And while obviously like Greg doesn't want to do it
Of course not.
because he's Greg, and the issue is kind of looming over the whole series because he doesn't want to sign it.
Right.
I don't think he's ever really hostile about it. It's clear he just like doesn't understand why she thinks they need it, because he's convinced that they're going to be together forever.
Yes.
They made it through their hurdles. They're in love forever now.
Also, like, Greg is generally difficult. At times he's really annoying, and NeNe is very clear, like, this is my soulmate. But at the same time, you could just see her as he's talking, just like rolling her eyes into oblivion because she's like, who is this clown? When the whole issue of the prenup comes up and Greg is like, why do I have to sign that? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, on one hand, you're like, well, he's probably just struggling this up to make it a plot point. But on the other hand, it kind of does feel like stuff that Greg would say. The reaction that Greg would have, whether somebody told him to have that reaction or not. I tend to just to suspend disbelief for reality TV, obviously, because if I didn't, I would never enjoy half of it as much as I do. I feel like a lot of Greg being a pain about this particular point was real. He just felt like by signing this agreement, it would somehow cheapen their relationship and their marriage. And
almost like by signing it, he was accepting that it wasn't going to last. Greg was the reason their marriage broke up the first time.
Right. Like, Greg, this was your fault. That's
this is all your fault, Greg. I almost feel like he should have some more understanding of this situation, knowing that, like, he got them there.
Right. And that was the point of contention the entire time after they broke up, because NeNe was frustrated with Greg and how he behaved because he was generally making her life really difficult by just not doing the right thing by her. So for him to be a huge pain, like just in terms of being generally annoying, on top of just being somebody that he couldn't trust, it was like, Greg, obviously this is your fault.
Yeah, and NeNe makes it so clear that this is about trust. I mean, she even goes so far as to tell the bridesmaids, like, if he would just sign it, I would tear it up. I just want to know that he's willing to sign it.
Right. And also, like, he made this whole show about how he would do anything to get her back when he was still trying to, like, get back into a relationship with her, and, like, showing up when they would go on their trip and, like, telling everybody they knew how much he loved her and how he had to get his NeNe back. He kept saying he would do anything, but then when it was like, okay, well, will you sign this agreement? He was like, I don't really understand why I have to do that.
I know that it's a difficult conversation. It must be a very difficult conversation to have. And for him to be constantly pushing back, there are definitely some people who would just be like, fine, and drop it. But I appreciate that she's very clear. Like, if there is no prenup, there is no wedding. This is a non-negotiable thing.
Yes.
And while, yes, it does take Greg a long time. In fact, the day before the wedding, he delivers the signed prenup and is like, here's my gift to you.
Greg, you should have signed that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Why are you like this? But
I mean, maybe
it made for a good scene.
It did make for a good scene. I can definitely see the producers being like, we got to wait for the very last minute for this. But I do think that the way that it was handled, it was clear when he did present it to her, like, I'm doing this because I love you, and I trust you, and I trust us. And there was about communication and transparency there. And so even if it was the producers that kept it till the last minute, I do feel like it put a nice end cap on this conversation of, like, trust and communication.
And I also think it was an interesting contrast to when Kandi and Todd had their wedding and they did, like, a series of wedding specials, like pre-wedding specials, because Kandi Burruss is extraordinarily wealthy. She has a career that spans decades. She wrote No Scrubs. Like, she has a lot of money.
And she's so unassuming with her money.
Oh, yeah. She's super chill. She's super chill about how rich she is. But then, like, you see her house and you're like, oh, okay, I see now. I understand. But she asked Todd to sign a prenup because she met Todd filming the show. Todd was a producer on Real Housewives, and they were, like, secretly dating for a while. Todd has money, but he doesn't have that much money. And Kandi was like, you need to sign this prenup. And Todd fought her about it. They had arguments about it. And I just thought it was so interesting to see that after seeing how it went between NeNe and Greg, who had already been married before and like hit absolute rock bottom and come back from it. It just goes to show, like, even though a prenup is just something that people think about as being the source of just like a million horrible conversations and fights and like maybe you're breaking up, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And there are a lot of different ways it can go, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with how much money either party in the couple has made or will make in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially, I mean, I can't even imagine what that process looked like for Greg and NeNe, given the fact that they have a son together.
I'm sure Donald told her about that.
Well, also, it was really funny, like, Donald said something like, yeah, I don't know, everything just always comes with me.
Really? I forgot that he was on the show until I revisited it, and I was alarmed.
Well, yeah, so as I was telling you, like, I bought it on iTunes, and the episode preview is his face.
Oh,
and I was just like, what is happening here? Why am I about to watch something about Donald?
Oh my God, like, no. It's ridiculous. And then also, the reason why she knows Donald was because she was on Celebrity Apprentice, right? So, like, she also knows Omarosa,
who was at the wedding.
Omarosa's at the wedding, and she's sitting next to Candy's mom. Like, it was just the weirdest thing to see in 2018 after all the other stuff that we've had to see in the past. It was just, like, bizarre.
So the next thing I want to talk about is the bridal party.
Oh, yes.
Because there's obviously a lot to talk about. NeNe's bridal party and all the drama with her bridesmaids, it takes up a good chunk of this 8-episode series.
Yeah, it's like,
and I feel like it's like 50% they were like, well, this is where we'll bring the drama from the Real Housewives of Atlanta in. But at the same time, it's like, this is also the real drama every time someone gets married and has bridesmaids.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's inflated on a certain scale, and like they have different problems than the rest of us do because they have cameras following them around all the time. But
yeah,
at the baseline, like all of that is real. As stupid as it seems when you're watching it and you're removed from it, when you're really in it, those are the kind of little petty arguments that you tend to have.
So there's particularly strained dynamics between Marlo, who is also from Real Housewives.
And like, no one likes her. That's also important to note. Marlo is just not likable.
But like Diana is like NeNe's oldest friend, knew NeNe before she was famous, before she had money, before anything, and has kind of like been with her this whole time. And she's very protective of NeNe, and she definitely sees Marlo and some of the other bridesmaids as being like opportunists and like just along for the ride because of fame and not necessarily because they love NeNe and they support NeNe. And this like ends up causing a lot of drama between Marlo and Diana. And like, well, that drama is totally in line with reality TV. That dynamic of like your oldest friend and then your new friends coming together as part of a bridal party or as part of a wedding party is so real.
It really is. And also like it's definitely a thing that I hear even removed from the bridesmaids relationships, just about the wedding itself. It's like, oh my God, we're going to mix all these people from different parts of my life. And it's so weird. They're all going to be in the same room. What if they don't like each other? I'm scared. And I'm like, well, ultimately, even if they don't like each other, you just have to hope that because they like you and they're there to support you, that they're just going to suck it up and deal. But I think because of the types of personalities in this particular bridal party, it just like blew way out of proportion. And they had like a very hazy memory of the tea party, but I know the episode was called like Spill the Tea Party.
Yeah, spilling the tea.
Which is what I really liked about it.
It was very aptly named.
Yes.
So, yes, instead of like a bridal shower, they have a tea party bridal shower that turns into a spilling the tea party.
Just a mess.
Yeah, where like I think Marlo walks out.
Yes.
And everybody's fighting. They looked nice.
They all looked amazing. They had great tea party theme outfit, and their hair and makeup was on point. But once they started talking, the whole thing just fell apart. I don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah, and I think
like, it was just so bad. And it's like so cringy where you just want them all to give up, but instead they just keep like going at each other.
There's one moment when Diana even just like loudly says, while everyone can hear her, like, I don't like these women.
Yes, I don't like them. And it's
okay.
like, Diana, did you really have to say that? What are you doing? So many of us have that friend who they just say stuff that you just really don't want them to say. And then you have to deal with it on a certain level because I just want you guys to get along with one another. Yeah. Diana was just, there were so many, I know they tried to like turn her into a villain, but honestly, there were so many times during that season where I was like, NeNe, why are you friends with her? She's such a downer.
There were definitely some moments. I mean, I do feel like she did a lot of things that were really meaningful. I do like, so the whole like blue party night was really sweet. At the bachelorette party, she had all the women like come together, dressed the same. So NeNe would look like the standout one. And of course, Marlo didn't
I was going to say, she tried to get everybody to dress the same.
She tried. She like got a book printed of all of their photographs all together and like had everyone read a letter, and it was very sweet. It was like clear that she like really, really loves NeNe, but sometimes it's like too much maybe.
Yeah, it was almost like the aggressive kind of friendship that Cynthia Bailey had with NeNe at one point, like when they first met each other on Real Housewives, and Cynthia tried to get her to sign a friendship contract. Do you remember that?
I forgot about that.
Oh my gosh, that's like iconic. At one point, Cynthia Bailey was so excited about having NeNe as a friend and like making it a perfect relationship that she wrote a friendship contract and printed it on a piece of paper and tried to get NeNe to sign it.
Can I add that to my friend request process on Facebook?
Yes.
You've got to sign this friendship contract where if you ever talk shit about me, we are done.
Seriously. According to the terms of our friendship contracts, you are
may never talk shit.
Yes.
You may never wear the same blouse as me.
Exactly. Can't wear the same clothes. Can't go after the same.
My ex.
Right. Like those are all important pieces of the friendship contract. You have to have brunch with me once a month. It was just like all this like weird stuff. And NeNe was like rightfully alarmed by this. Like, who are you? And why are you trying to get me to sign a contract to be your friend?
Which is so funny because like now, especially in I Dream of NeNe, Cynthia's like the totally reasonable friend.
Oh yeah, Cynthia is so chill. She's so chill. Even at the wedding, she's just like unbothered.
It's cool. It's fine. It's all going to be all right.
Perfectly relaxed, not a bead of sweat on her forehead, and everybody else is like chickens with their heads cut off. Funny how things change.
Yes. So one thing that NeNe has all of her bridesmaids do that I am not down with is she makes them all get Botox and other treatments so that they look good for the wedding.
I'm pretty sure they got vajazzled.
Oh, they did.
Remember when that was the thing, vajazzling?
Yes, yeah.
Where you get like little sticky crystals put on your vulva. That I'm pretty sure that's what they did.
I would be all for if I was in my friend's wedding and she wanted to pay for me to get spa treatments.
Yes.
Sure. Go right ahead.
I'm here for that.
But I hope it was none of them were getting vajazzled against their will.
Right? I hope that they weren't forced to do anything that they didn't want to do.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that you can ask your bridal party to do, that you can ask your wedding party to do, and they will do it for you because they love you. But vajazzling, most people
is a bridge too far.
Yeah, that's just not part of it. That's not part of the agreement. That's not in the friendship contract. Okay,
so we also need to go into a little bit more detail about the bachelorette party. the vajazzling, the Botox, the spilling the tea party,
Yes.
all of that was at home
Mm-hmm.
in Atlanta. But a week before the wedding, they go on this like 5-day trip to Cancun. So let me tell you, when they're in Cancun and a bunch of the women go on this like surfboard wave simulator thing.
Oh.
Watching that scene gave me so much reassurance. A bunch of the women are like, yeah, we'll try this like boogie board, surfboard, wave simulator thing that's happening. And of course, like they all fall down.
They all fall down.
And half of them have their bathing suit tops and bottoms like ripped off by the force of the wave. So I'm about to get a little personal here.
Uh-oh.
I have been on a wave simulator and I have had my bathing suit removed from my body.
Jen! No!
To see this scene was like, at least it's not just me. This past March, I went with my friend. She wanted to celebrate her birthday at the Great Wolf Lodge, which is this place outside of Richmond, Virginia, that is like for kids. It's a giant resort with an indoor water park.
Oh.
And she was just like, whatever. It's my 40th birthday. It's going to be great. We're going to drink. We're going to eat good food. We're going to swim. We're going to ride rides. It's going to be great.
Uh-huh.
And so I get on this wave simulator, even though I'm like, I can't swim. I don't know why I thought, I can't swim.
No.
I can't hold my breath underwater. I have to hold my nose.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You can't swim. You're on a wave simulator?
Yes. And so there's like, let me just tell you about the clientele of the Great Wolf Lodge. It's like 90% children. And there is a line of people ahead of me to do this.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, this 13-year-old girl hops on and she's rocking it. And she's like switching between being on her knees and on her feet. And she's just like making this look like the easiest thing in the world.
She's done it before, right?
Yes.
Or she's 13. Like, it could be either one.
She's like a little surfer girl.
Yeah,
and
she's like a gymnast, probably. Like, all 13-year-old girls tend to be.
She's flexible.
Right.
I'm not flexible. My center of gravity is probably a little different.
Yeah.
As a plus-size woman. But so I decided, sure, I'll do this. And so me and one of my other friends who was with us, like, decided to do it. And she went first and she totally wiped out, but her swimsuit did not come off. And then I'm like, okay, it's okay. It'll be fine.
I'll be great.
And so I do it, and then I wipe out, and then I stand up. And Allison, I kid you not, I had no idea my boob was out.
No!
And they're like 13-year-old boys.
No!
And my friend is like, oh my God! And I'm like, ah! So that's the story about the time and how relieved I am to know that I am not the only woman who has gone on a simulator and had all of her junk fall out of the top of her bathing suit. There were 13-year-old boys at their bachelorette parties.
No.
I didn't hire anyone. I'm sorry.
Oh.
To any parents of children who may have witnessed it, this is my public apology for having a boob pop out.
I'm sorry I flashed you.
I'm sorry, children. Please forgive me.
Oh my gosh.
I never meant to
well,
put you in that situation.
Did your friend set you up to do it purely for her own entertainment, like NeNe Leakes did, or was it just?
Well, she was like, "You guys can do it, but I'm not doing it." So maybe a little bit. Nobody ahead of me had their swimsuit come off, so none of us like went into this the expectation that this is a thing that could have happened, but it did.
I just can't. I can't. I just queued up again to see the dolphin part, and NeNe's excuse is that she has her period, so she can't go in the
because
water.
The dolphin is going to attack her because of the scent of blood. Dolphins aren't sharks.
Girl, no.
I love you, NeNe, but dolphins aren't sharks.
No, she was just not trying to be a part of it. She's like taking pictures on her phone. She's like drinking her little cocktail. She is purely entertained by these women putting themselves in situations that they absolutely hate and embarrassing themselves on television.
Well, yeah. So they were making them position themselves so that two dolphins, these must be like crazy trained dolphins.
Oh, yeah.
These two dolphins swim up in unison and essentially lift them up into the air.
Like a Free Willy type of thing.
Yes. So they're like essentially like riding the backs of dolphins. And they make Marlo do it even though she can't swim. This is like Marlo's face would be like my face if I can't swim.
Yeah. Marlo was miserable. They were like, move your feet. And she was like, I can't.
And she like clearly doesn't want to get her hair wet. And she's like really unhappy with the whole situation, but she does it. The bachelor party is ridiculous and amazing all in one.
I want to bring up the painting.
Oh my God, the painting.
The painting. So
who gave it to her?
Diana gave it to her. Remember, it was a painting of her and Diana.
But then Diana said she didn't give it to her.
That's not true. You know Diana gave it to her. I just feel so strongly that Diana commissioned this painting and then had it sent to the hotel during the bachelorette party so she could be like, see, I'm the best friend that you have, and like everybody else back up because I'm her best friend. Look, we're in a painting together.
Yeah, so it was a really poorly done painting. I apologize to the painter.
Sorry, painter.
It's probably not your fault. It was probably the direction you were given. Like really kind of creepy painting of Diana and NeNe kind of like looming over her from behind. And it arrives, and when it arrives, Diana's not in the room, and everyone, including NeNe, is like, that is creepy. What is that?
They're like, that is so weird. Like, she's trying to single black female you.
Yeah. And so then when Diana comes in and they're all like, did you do this? She's like, no.
And then he's like, I thought maybe it was a prank that Marlo's playing. Marlo's like, no. But at the same time, it's like, as soon as Diana walks in, everybody's already talking about how terrible it is. And it's like, of course she's not going to own up to having this painting sent because she's so embarrassed. It's just bizarre.
It was a very bizarre thing. But like at the same time, I can understand how she would be like, this is going to be a really great gift.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel for her.
I just think that the timing wasn't great. Especially given the relationship that she had with the other bridesmaids, which was absolutely terrible. Even if it had been like a beautiful and perfectly thoughtful gift, they still would have found a way to drag her. So I think she just blew it in terms of timing. Having a gift presented to somebody in front of a group of people who did not give that person a gift themselves is always a little awkward.
Yeah.
But it's super awkward when the gift is a painting of you with that person. Especially if you're not in any sort of romantic relationship.
And when you're like creeping over the side.
Right. When she's like looming over you like a spirit watching over you. It's never a good look.
Yeah. Okay, but let's talk about the wedding.
Yes. I've been waiting.
we're gonna back it up a little bit in the timeline because you know the bachelorette party was like right before the wedding happened.
Please don't do that. Sorry, as a wedding planner, I just feel compelled to say, even though I really don't want my clients to be doing any planning work the last month before the wedding, I also would not recommend taking 5 people out of the country for almost a week right before your wedding happens.
Yeah.
The stress of doing something like that is unpredictable, even when it is a vacation. And the last thing you need to do is get yourself all wound up before you even get to wedding week. That's when you're really going to be wound up and excited. Just please don't.
She did fly the seamstress to do a fitting in Cancun for all of the bridesmaids' dresses.
I just
was a lot. I love that Lexus, one of her bridesmaids, was like, I didn't know this was happening and I'm drunk.
Right. Seriously. She looks up and she's like, oh, we're doing this?
And like NeNe gives her a bunch of shit that she's drunk, but I'm sorry, I thought this was a party. Like,
on a vacation.
I don't blame Lexus for being drunk. She thought this was a party.
Seriously.
So, anyways.
And you show up and make me put the dress on? Like, no.
She, like, almost throws up on the dress.
Oh, my God. So messy.
Moving along.
Yes.
So, at the very start of the series, I mean, like, granted, this is all happening over, like, a 3-month period.
Mm-hmm.
She's, like, planning her wedding in a 3-month period, which is tough to do on the scale of the wedding she has in mind. We kind of start out, she has this venue in mind. It's, like, this gorgeous estate with lots of gardens.
Mm-hmm.
She has this wedding planner who she really only booked because it was the only one available. And gets to a point where, like, it's clear this wedding planner is not working out. She is not meshing with her vision. It is not, she's not responding quickly enough to inquiries. Like, NeNe has no idea what's going on. She's super stressed about it. Gets to the point where Greg is like, we should just cancel this wedding.
Which is not the right move, Greg.
Yes. So,
like, there are a lot of valid reasons to cancel a wedding. You never get so far in that you can't cancel it if you really feel like it's not the right thing to do. But you should not cancel your wedding because you feel like your wedding planner isn't doing a good job.
So, yes, I would love to hear your opinion about the original wedding planner and how they went about the decision to fire her, then how fucking awesome Tony is.
So the thing about their original wedding planner that I think was the most off-putting was that her personality in itself was off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
She was just kind of cold and generally unimpressed by NeNe and her ideas and just not very supportive. I think that as a wedding planner, while you don't want to let your clients just run wild and do everything that they can think of, you also don't want to make them feel like they have terrible ideas and nothing that they want to do could ever possibly work. It's really about finding that balance and being able to convey your ideas and your recommendations in a way that makes them feel heard and understood. And this woman just could not seem to do that. She was just cold towards them.
I know that for a lot of people, it feels like they can't switch wedding planners, either because they have paid a retainer or like some sort of initial investment. It's definitely a privilege to be able to say, I'm done with you, wedding vendor. We're going to move on to somebody else. Like, not everybody has the money to do that. But don't keep going with something that's not right.
No. I mean, it's just like the wedding itself. If you feel uncomfortable, like you don't want to continue, then you don't have to. You totally don't have to.
And I see this a lot, especially with LGBTQ plus couples, if they like hire a vendor and they think that they're in tuned, but like there are things to be aware of. So if a member of the couple is gender nonconforming, like understanding how to ask about pronouns and how to publicly address the couple and what they want to be called and how they want to be treated.
And actually following through with those things too.
And like, I feel like there's a lot of times where couples think that they're getting one thing and then they start to kind of see the signs of like, okay, you know, really, you're not as woke as you think you are.
Exactly.
And like when it comes to your wedding, you want people around you you can trust. And so I really appreciate that they show her being like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. And she was 2 months away. It was risky.
Yes.
I'm sure it was terrifying.
Yes.
But she moved along right to Tony
Conway,
who, like, on their very first meeting, this is an education, in my opinion, for all wedding planners.
Yes.
That very first meeting that they have, where he, like, has done everything up in his office that is catered specifically to her style and her taste.
Yes.
That's how you do it. Granted, he is a huge high budget wedding planner. His clients are insane.
Millions and millions of dollars in revenue for him to be able to do these things. But
But like the fact that you try to get to know your client personally is really, really important. And I think it's a good lesson to any wedding vendors. This is how you do it.
Yeah, I think at its most basic level, it's just about doing the work and showing up with some level of information about the client. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the first meeting either. It's like,
Yeah.
I think as a planner, it's important for me to talk to people, to find out about them and what they envision for their wedding, meet them and see what they're like as a couple, and then write a proposal, because then I know what they're looking for. And this is just a planning proposal. This isn't about design or anything that's like about personal taste. It's just about understanding what's important to them and then being able to highlight those things in my proposal. You use what you have available to you, not even in terms of like Facebook stalking or anything like that. You you just like ask the right questions and you see where people are coming from and you listen to them, and then you take all of that information that they've given into you and try to turn it around into something that really appeals to them because they feel like you heard what they had to say.
We saw him also kind of have to like break it to her about the venue.
Yeah.
So as soon as she books Tony, they go back to that beautiful estate with its beautiful gardens. And he's just like,
yeah,
I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. And she's devastated. But he is so right. You've got 2 months. I need you to trust me. And like that trust between a couple and their wedding vendors is also so important.
So key.
And I also appreciate that they filmed and aired when they were talking about the budget.
Oh, yes. Because even if people have a whole lot of wealth and what seems like unlimited money to spend on a wedding, they still have a budget.
And yes, the budget was between $500,000 and $1 million.
Yeah.
But like we see pictures and images of weddings that look like that all the time, and we don't know how much they cost. And so the fact that we know that her custom dress costs $50,000.
Yes.
And like if you want a dress like the one that NeNe Leakes has, you better be prepared to spend that much money. But like you don't have to spend that much money.
No, you do not. It's really useful that they televise that information too, because so many people are on Pinterest and Instagram and seeing all these images of these ultra luxury weddings and not understanding that they fall in the ultra luxury category. And even though it's not the simplest wedding, but if you take away a lot of the elements that you see hanging from the ceiling,
the 60,000 crystals hanging from the ceiling.
If you cut the crystals, it genuinely has like a very clean vibe. It's all white. It's straight. They are using Chiavari ballroom chairs, which are the same chairs that most people have at their weddings, and they're beautiful flowers. But I think it's hard to kind of fathom just how much those things cost if you don't already have a baseline understanding of how much they are for just like the absolute most basic budget wedding in your area or in your market.
He basically talks her out of this gorgeous estate venue and is like, we're going to have a hotel wedding. And she's really like
horrified.
I love that, like, it's clear what you can do in any venue space with enough money and with the right skills.
Yes, the right skills. Yes.
So, I mean, at one point he said it took 30 people just to hang all those crystals. So I was really glad to also, we saw a lot of behind the scenes of that room in transition from your standard hotel conference ballroom with its like folding sliding walls, which are, hideous, and everyone knows what those look like.
Yeah.
And how they said it was like a production for a concert, and it was.
It
There's
was.
steel scaffolding. They essentially have to build out a whole new room and a whole stage, and they draped all the walls, and so much work went into it, and they were working on that room for 2 days. And like the cost is not just in all of the beautiful decor, but it's renting that space for 2 days. And like most people cannot afford to rent a space for 2 days to put the level of decoration into it that they want to do. Half of it's hard to find a place that's available, period. And you add to that, like, oh, I'm just going to rent this out for like multiple days. So yeah, it was so nice to see it through the process and show that it's not just something that you can snap your fingers and you're going to have this fairy tale wedding. Like, these things take work, they take money, and they take having the right people.
Absolutely.
And they are 100% unnecessary.
It is by no means required for you to have a wedding with this level of detail and expense. It is not something that you have to do.
A justice of the peace works just fine.
Yes. I've definitely worked on plenty of weddings that were over the top in this sense, and they were beautiful, and the families had just as good of a time as weddings I've worked on where they spent a quarter the amount. Because ultimately that's really not what it's about. I just want to go back to what you said about how important it is to hire people with the right skills, because when you don't it can go so wrong so quickly. And that goes for anything that you do when it comes to hiring people for a service. You end up spending more money when you hire people who don't know what they're doing.
There are definitely planners and designers out there who take on a lot, and this is not to say that they're not skilled people, but maybe just haven't had the experience to know what it takes to pull off a wedding of that scale. And so finding a planner or designer that fits your budget and fits your style and your personality is important. But also, even if you really, really like someone and you mesh really well with someone, if they don't have experience in the type of wedding that you want, it's not personal, and like, they won't take it personally, and you shouldn't worry about them taking it personally if you choose to go in a different direction, because most vendors specialize in certain types of weddings, and that's the type of wedding that they want to work. And if that's not you, that's not you.
Yeah. Because I think it's also a matter of making sure that you hire not only the right people, but enough people. Even for something as simple as like the amount of servers that you have on the floor during dinner, you can cut corners on that. But if you cut the corners too closely, people are going to feel the difference. I think it's so important to have an adequate number of people working on something like your wedding, because when people are shorthanded and they're rushing and they're anxious and they're stressed out because it doesn't feel like they can get all the work done, that vibe, that nervous energy tends to spread. And frantic is not a word you want to use to describe anything about or related to your wedding.
No, and I think, going back to the venue decision, I think that she went there to that venue with a realtor. Like, this is not a venue that they rent out for weddings. Like, she was essentially going to rent this giant home as if she was renting a home. And so the amount of work that then comes with, like, yes, it's a beautiful space, but there's not a venue manager. There's not all of the things that gets built into things like if you have a wedding at a hotel where they have weddings there all the time. They have trained staff. They know how many servers they're going to need. They know how to run food in and out of the space. They know how to do breakdown. They know how to do setup. So even though there was this beautiful fairy tale venue that she really, really wanted, it's nice to be able to understand the trade-offs of that. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to be more logistically difficult. And it's opening you up to a whole lot more chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Than if you go with a venue and you go with vendors that do this like all the time. So
right. It's like an off-premise versus on-premise thing, right? So a hotel's an on-premise situation. They already have it all there. They roll it out for you. They make it happen. They have people who are specifically trained to make it happen. And it feels like you're kind of running through a well-oiled machine. And like with NeNe's wedding, it's possible to do something that's totally unique that is not like anything anybody had ever done before in that space. But it's also, you get the feeling that people are comfortable doing it. It doesn't feel like the first time they've ever had to handle something of this size and scope. And when you go off premise, it can start to get a little more complicated. And that's when you really want to have vendors on your team who not only have done it before, but are very comfortable with it. And for a while, I did all off-premise things. And we had to build entire parties from scratch. You bring in the catering team and you bring in a bunch of people on the service staff, and they literally build your party for you. Like, we used to walk around talking about how we were going to build a party, because we did. You rent all the chairs, all the tables, all the linen, and you just kind of like put it together. And that's the case in a space that's already built, like a museum or a library or something like that. But then you can go even further off-prem and have an event at a house, which is what NeNe was thinking of doing. And even though at first it seems like having a wedding at home is just going to be simple, even if your house is enormous and you feel as though you definitely have space for all the people you want to invite, like, oh, my house is huge, I only want to invite 20 people. Like, to be able to support that many people in your home, you really have to make a lot of changes. It's like you have to make sure that you have enough restrooms for everybody to use. You have to make sure that there's enough space for the catering staff to prepare food. If you have a plated meal, they have to lay out every single one of those plates individually. Do you have enough space for that many tables? Those are all things that you have to think about. And then if you want to have your wedding outside at home, that's a whole another piece. It's like, you got to get.
Is it going to rain? You got to get a tent.
Yeah. Are you going to put a floor in the tent? Are you going to bring in trailers for the restrooms? Are you able to even do that? If your town requires you to have permits, do you know how to get those permits? There's so many variables that you have to consider. And I think that's the reason why NeNe's planner was like, as beautiful as this space is, it's just not the right fit for what you're trying to do. She invited 400 people to her wedding. There are so many details that you have to be able to take care of.
And so many of our readers are like opting for backyard weddings. And while that as an idea is fantastic and it can be done on the cheap, but you really have to understand, especially if you don't have a wedding planner, what you're going to be taking on.
Right.
And that's from like dealing with the caterer on your own, dealing with rentals on your own, because I don't think, even if you're having 20 people over, do you have 20 chairs in your house? Do you have 20 places for them to sit and eat? Do you have just even 20 places for them to stand and watch you get married?
Right.
The little things add up fast, like 20 wine glasses for people to drink out of. Okay, maybe you go with paper cups, but then like, you know, all of
those
decisions.
Do you have enough trash cans to handle all of that? These are all things that you have to think about. I mean, they're not the most fun details to consider, but they are important to have a good grasp on. And I think a lot of times when people want to have weddings that are at any level of formality above just like a backyard barbecue, having it at home is going to be 9 times out of 10 much more expensive than it would be to have it at a venue, even if the venue is just like a box where you walk in, you have to fill it with everything that it takes. Because at least then you know that they have the plumbing that's necessary for the restrooms and like space for you to set up all your tables. Like, you don't really have to turn it into something different. Whereas with your home, you really have to transform it a lot of the times into a space.
And if you are going to choose to do it at home, like I know a lot of people are going that route and they think, okay, if I do it at home, I don't need a planner. But I think that's when you need a planner the most, is because you don't have a venue manager or somebody helping you to connect with the right vendors, like even if it's audio, so that people can actually hear you say your vows.
Yes. Yes, major. It's really about understanding just how much of the wedding you have to build, I guess. And anytime that you bring in multiple vendors, you're going to want a planner. Yeah. Somebody's going to have to wrangle all those people. Because at a certain point, it really does turn into wrangling because everybody has their own agenda.
I love also that we get to see like NeNe getting ready on the wedding day and like, she's stressed and she is right about to go down the aisle and she like pretty much has a panic attack.
Totally.
And it's not about not wanting to get married. It's not about Greg. It's about, and I think like so many people right before they get married have that feeling of like, I have spent so much money. It's such an intense situation. Like, yes. Everyone's going to be looking at me, especially like if you're an introvert or you don't like being in public. It's a really uncomfortable situation. And that's not something that people really talk about with weddings. You're just supposed to be happy all the time, and to be able to see her essentially like have a mini meltdown and it not being a runaway bride situation. It wasn't about drama. It's just, this is an intense situation. Weddings are intense. And this is normal. And she powered through it. And she had her sons walk her down that aisle. And it was all fun. And it was beautiful. And when she got past it, she was great. And I legit cried. And
me too, the whole time.
It was so emotional just because, like, they've been together so long. And they've been through so much. Like, there was not a dry eye in the house there. Everybody was crying.
Everybody. And I appreciated like the fact that they showed her having a meltdown, even if they tried to use it as like a drama cliffhanger before commercial. It was very real. She was really feeling the weight of what was happening to her. And even though she already married this guy one time, that wasn't even part of it, really. That doesn't make it feel any less momentous than it is. For that to be shown as part of this whole moment and this experience was just, I thought, really special.
Yes. So yeah, I think you and I could keep talking about NeNe forever.
I feel like very few people can say that they dedicated hours of a podcast to talking about NeNe. I feel really strongly about her. Her and Greg.
And Playa.
Oh my God, Playa.
Their dog is named Playa.
Yes, the dog's named Playa, and the dog was in the wedding ceremony.
He had a little suit.
And it was a family affair.
So also, it kind of ends with them going up to their like honeymoon suite, and at first they're like, "We're gonna go have sex." Yeah. And then they get up there and like, "We're tired. Where's Playa? Yeah. I just want to pet the dog." And
exactly.
It's also like, real. This is this is what it's like. Yes. It's 8 episodes of wonderful realness, and everyone should go watch it, even if you're like, you just told me everything that happens. The plot is not important.
Also, I just want to say like some aesthetic stuff because I was really into the aesthetic of this wedding.
Yes, tell me about your favorite part of the wedding.
I'm not so much a crystals and sparkles type of planner, and for me to watch a wedding like this that is so clearly crystals and sparkles and cascading orchids and really love it I was not expecting that. I thought it was so beautiful.
Yeah, and like she said that she wanted it to be like a vintage Hollywood vibe, and that came through in her look, but it was never cheesy. It was never, it was just glamorous and beautiful, and
it was not heavy-handed, which
not heavy-handed.
Easily been. I just felt like the stylistic elements of the wedding were just really nice and really well done. And I think that before this point, you had never really seen a wedding like this on television before. Like the idea of draping an entire ballroom and turning it into a completely different space was not as ubiquitous as it is now. People think of that now as a certified option, whereas in 2013 when this came out, it just wasn't really something that everybody saw as attainable. And like the giant floral arrangements were amazing, and I usually am not excited by those. And Judge Mathis was the officiant. he looked great. He had his robe on and everything. The fact that she had her bridesmaids not only wear all different styles of dress, but they
were all wearing white. Yes.
And I think that was the first time I had ever seen that.
Yeah, I think she might have beaten Solange to that.
She did. You're right. She did. I thought that it was really beautiful. I also appreciated that she wore gold.
NeNe had so much gold in the lace and it was beautiful, but she basically gave a toast and was like, part of the reason I wanted you all to wear white is because you helped me get here and this is just as much your day as it is mine. Yeah. And that was beautiful.
So thoughtful.
A really important message when like there's a Bridezilla reality TV show. Like having that message, Greg and I acknowledge all the people that helped us get here.
It was a team effort.
It's a team effort.
Yeah. And another thing that was really impactful for me watching it was Tony and his behavior. Like there were definitely moments where you could tell that they made Tony like pull his people away from the situation so that it could like escalate and turn into a mess. But there were also points where you got to see what being a luxury wedding planner is really like. It's not really like the J-Lo movie. A lot of it is about just popping up when people need you the most. And
and like when she was having a breakdown and somebody's giving her water, but she has her makeup on, so it's not like she can just drink it. And like somebody's holding a napkin under her so she doesn't spill water on herself. Like, it's not the most glamorous thing, but like, that's what people do.
Yeah. And like he had this moment where they were talking about the logistics of getting her into the room, and Tony the planner told her that she was going to have to go through the basement. And she was like, I'm not taking this $50,000 dress through the basement.
Because she was going to have to walk through the kitchen, too.
Right, exactly. So
and we all know that kitchens have, like, food on the floor and, like, shit everywhere. And
she was not happy about that idea, but he knew that, and he was there with her as she was walking through it, and he was just telling her how amazing she looked and how great it was all going to be. And
how she made every hallway beautiful. Like,
yes. And he was just giving, like, the ultimate pep talk to her.
Tony's the best.
He is just a total gem. I was so excited to see him do his job. And, like, when he gave Greg the gift that NeNe had bought for him, and, like, he had this whole emotional moment.
And Greg cried a lot. And
Greg cried a ton. As annoying as Greg is, he has a good heart. He means well in the end. And he's just a good person. You could tell. It's hard to fake that.
I definitely so this is episode 3, and the first 2 episodes I had a lot more critical things to say about the movies that we were reviewing, and I definitely feel like this is one where it's like, I don't really have a lot of negative things to say. Vajazzling doesn't sound like a good idea, but otherwise, this is a really good depiction. Like, yes, not everybody can afford it, but it was real. And
and in the end, it was just about, like, love, relationships and love, and how important these people are in her life. Not just Greg, but her friends, her kids, her stepkids. It is a really special 8 episodes of television.
Yeah, maybe just skip the part where she's talking to
yes.
Because nobody needs to see his face anymore. And skip the vajazzling. But, you know.
That's not necessary either.
Yeah, the rest is all good.
Totally charming. Just absolutely delightful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with me. And finally, can you tell everybody who's listening where they can find you and your wedding planning services?
Yes. So if you need your own personal Tony, you can find me at davisrow.com, DAVISROW. And then my personal Instagram is Allison, ALLISON .davisrow. And I'm on Pinterest at Davis Row. I'm all over the internet, and I would love to internet with you.
Thank you again. And talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Bye. The Catalyst Wedding Review Podcast is a production of Catalyst Wedding Co. Show your support of Catalyst and this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/catalystwedco. You can find real wedding inspiration and advice for feminists, the LGBTQ plus community, and woke folk at www.catalystwedco.com. And if you're engaged and looking for wedding vendors that share your values, then look no further than the Catalyst Vendor Directory. Also, follow us at Catalyst Wedco on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Our theme song was composed by Momentum. Our co-founders are Liz Susong and Carly Romeo. Our operations manager is Marley Hilton. Our editorial team consists of Amber Marlowe, Michaela Dietz, Jordan Maney, and Cindy Savage. Our intern is Sydney Zwick. Our advertising and sponsorship team consists of Katie Wannon and Erica Swift. For advertising or sponsorship inquiries, email sales@catalystwedco.com. As always, I am Jen Samako, the CEO of Catalyst Wedding Co., and I am always open to hearing your thoughts. Send your ideas and comments to jen@catalystwedco.com. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week disrupting the wedding industry.